Hey guys, it's Mr. Titter here with you guys again, talking to you about the Dust Bowl during the Great Depression. Let me move this out of the way and hopefully you can see what we have going on. We've already been introduced to it a little bit, learning about the Dust Bowl. Here's a poem that was written by from Brother Can You Spare a Dime? Now I lay me down to snore, tons of dust in every pore. If another day I do not see, there will be no need to bury me. This is a unique time period during our nation's history, and we're going to study it, and we're going to watch a movie called The Grapes of Wrath on it later next week. And so this will kind of get us prepared to start learning about the Dust Bowl in a little bit more detail. First, you're going to go to Edpuzzle to watch this video here on the Dust Bowl. You'll click on Edpuzzle. I'll know that you watched it there, so make sure you do that for me, please. The Dust Bowl, when we're talking about it, we're talking about Oklahoma, Colorado, Kansas, Texas, and New Mexico. Normally you hear Oklahoma in the panhandle here referenced during the Dust Bowl. And for a lot of those people, no matter where they came from, they go seeking a new life in California, where it's greener and they've had more rain and the produce is growing. They have opportunity for employment. A lot of times those people who leave are called Okies, after Oklahoma, a shortened form of Oklahoma, as they leave. These are some pictures of what the Dust Bowl would have looked like as they come in. This is in Kansas, April 14th, 1935. This is in Colorado. So it's not just one state. It's multiples of states here, and imagine just living your life in the midst of this. Almost looks like a sandstorm or Armageddon in some ways. This is April 14th, 1935. Many people believe that the world was coming to an end. Here's a black blizzard in Colorado in 1937. What's causing this Dust Bowl? There's a lot of different stuff going on, but essentially a little bit of greed as people wanted to grow more crops and shallow-rooted crops. They got rid of the prairie grasses, as we heard about in our notes the other day, and they planted corn and other shallow-rooted crops, and they did not rotate their crops like they should have, and that loosened the topsoil, took out all the nutrients, and then wind came along and just blew it off the land and actually covered entire houses in dust. This is approaching Stratford, Texas in 1935. Same town in 1935 as well. And Colorado again. And a black blizzard in Colorado in 1937. Colorado, Sheridan Lake. A dust cloud approaching a small town in Oklahoma. Farmer Arthur Coble and Sons walking the face of the dust storm. This is a normal size house. He's taller than his house because it's been covered in dust. You can see dust is too much for this farmer's son in Oklahoma. It's covered an entire car. And this is a comparison of two photos, one at 5:15 and 15 minutes later at 5:30 after the dust storm had rolled in. You can't even see the street lights hardly in the one photo. Dust storm approaching Kansas in 1937. These are people wearing masks. We've gotten used to that a little bit more today. But these are Red Cross volunteers wearing dust masks in Kansas. Dust Bowl and drought devastated some farm families in the early 1930s, such as this 32-year-old mother of 7. This is the famous picture called Migrant Mother of 1936 by Dorothea Lange. What caused the Dust Bowl disaster? We talked about it: severe drought and no rain, overgrazing by cattle, overplowing by farmers, overproduction of food, and no crop rotation. High winds. All these conditions kind of joined together to destroy the prairie grasses that held the soil in place, and it ends up blowing away, what we also call black blizzards. Parts of the Great Plains became known as the Dust Bowl. Migrant workers were poor farmers from Oklahoma. A lot of them were sharecroppers, so they paid their rent by farming the land for the landowner or the land agents. And so they would pick a certain amount and get paid for whatever they picked. In return, they were able to live on that land. So they didn't own it, but they were able to live there by picking the crops that grew. They headed west to escape the Dust Bowl. Many moved to the West Coast to find jobs on farms, especially to California. That was the promised land. But people didn't want them coming there. They're not welcomed by locals in any way because they thought they would bring unemployment, crime, and vagrancy with them. Locals feared they would also take their jobs. So these migrant workers lived in poor conditions. They lived in tents with no water or electricity. Farmers are already struggling because they've been overproducing their crops and driving their home prices down. And the lack of rain and the overuse of the land made farmers' problems even worse. Conditions forced farmers of the Great Plains to migrate west, where they were unwelcome and faced an even harder life. Many were left displaced, homeless, as farmland became useless. A lot of times it led to starvation and diseases like rickets and scurvy in a lot of kids. There's a famous video and song called Brother, Can You Spare a Dime? And you can read the words there, but essentially Bing Crosby actually sang it. It's talking about how poor they were due to the Great Depression and stock market crash, as well as the Dust Bowl and the nature's effects on what they lived in. I'm going to have you look at another video called Black Blizzards that you will check out online as well on Edpuzzle. So please do that. And thanks for tuning in. All right. Bye.